Okay, let's take a look at the offset. What exactly is the offset? Well, from the get-go, just realize the offset function is kind of the oddball of the Excel functions. Admittedly, it's kind of goofy, it's kind of awkward, but it does serve a purpose. Before we see the function in action, let's take a moment to describe the way it works. So imagine yourself looking through a pair of binoculars, and you're looking at a particular point. Then what you do is you move down, then you move across, and then you start to play with the zoom, making the image larger or smaller. That's analogous to the way the offset function works. With the offset, you have a beginning point, then you move down X number of rows, then you move across X number of columns. From there, you tell Excel to grab a chunk of cells because you want to do something with it. Before we go any further, let's take a moment to recognize that the offset function is typically used with dynamic ranges. And I made the conscious decision to throw practicality out the window and simply focus on how exactly the offset function works. Let's start with a super simple example just for the sake of clarity, and then we'll move into more practical examples. So here we have our data with our product categories going down the left-hand side, our regions going across the top, and what we want to do is extract some of those numbers so we can work with them. In this case, we want to see how much dog food was sold in the South. Let's use the offset function to extract just that number. Let's go up and click the FX icon, do a search for offset, and now where it says reference, reference means starting point. So in this case, we want Excel to start right here. Now Excel's going to get a little angry. That's okay, we'll just ignore that. The next thing is to tell Excel how many rows to count down. In this case, we're looking for dog food, so we'll move down 1, 2, 3 rows, and then type the number 3. The next thing Excel wants to know is how many columns to count over. In this case, we are looking for the South, so we'll count over 1, 2, 3 columns. We'll type the number 3. We'll just ignore height and width for right now. We'll see that in the next example. Simply click OK, and we should get $28,000. And there we go. Again, a very impractical example. The goal here is just to get you warmed up as to how the offset function works. Okay, let's see a more practical example. The way the offset function really works is you give Excel a starting point. It will then move down X number of rows, then across X number of columns, and that gives Excel a new point. From there, you tell Excel how many cells to grab or to extract. And this is done by using the height and width portion of the function dialog box. If you go back to that binocular analogy we gave you at the beginning of the lesson, the zoom portion of making your area larger or smaller is how the height and width portion of the function dialog box works. Let's see an example to clarify it. In this case, the boss wants to see the numbers for the dog food and the dog treats from the South and the West. And since the boss wants to see them, we have to extract them. Let's click the FX icon, and then for the reference, we'll give it this starting point right here. For the rows, we'll count down 3 because the dog food lives here. Then for the columns, we'll count over 1, 2, 3 because the South lives here. That gives us a new starting point. For the height and width, here's how much we tell Excel to grab. If we type in a number of 2, that will tell Excel to grow 2 rows. If we type in a width of 2, that will tell Excel to grow 2 columns. Put another way, when we type in those values, Excel will grab this chunk of cells right here. When we click OK, Excel will extract out those chunk of cells and show them to us. And right there is the chunk of cells we are looking for. That is the dog food and the dog treats from the South and the West. All right, so by now you have a better understanding of how the offset function works in its entirety, yet still wondering why would you even do this in the first place? Well, please understand that the offset function is best utilized when it is nested with other functions. Let's see an example to clarify that. So for this final example, let's say that for whatever reason, the boss saw an offset function video somewhere, has become enamored with it, and wants you to take the average of the dog food and the dog treats from the South and the West. Lucky us. So just to make this easier, we'll go up here and copy our existing offset formula. We'll then jump down here and type equal average, open parentheses, copy in the offset formula, close parentheses, and there we go. All right, so let's wrap this lesson up. As we've learned, the offset function is kind of clunky and kind of awkward. And as we stated, the goal here was simply to illustrate the way the offset function works. Hopefully this has helped you out, and we'll see you in the next one.